University-Industry Linkages. We are told it's a critical and essential element in moving any economy forward. But we want to know, what exactly is University-Industry Linkages? What does it mean?
Thank you very much. If you permit me, let me start from the development of higher education right after the post-colonial era, so that we can then have that historic perspective and why we now talk about university-industry linkages.
Okay.
Immediately after independence, the then existing higher education institutions were established primarily to feed the colonial administration of the then departing colonialists. So having a university education was an almost foregone guarantee that a graduate would have a job.
Okay.
Then comes in the era of the 1980s, that after a study by the World Bank, the role of higher education was relegated to the background, and attention then focused on primary education. That was the era that began the downfall of higher education in Africa. It was much later, in the 1990s, when further studies had shown that sustainable economic development can never happen without a strong higher education system. That attention then was focused once again on catapulting higher education to the forefront.
Okay. So what happened within that period? Did industry now come in to support universities?
Within the period of
given the background that you are giving.
Okay. So let me again start.
Okay.
During the period that primary education took the forefront, even African governments were not in support of higher education.
Okay.
Or giving much emphasis on. It took organizations like the Association of African Universities to continue to emphasize that without higher education, Africa could not develop.
Okay.
So after the turnaround by the governments and the development partners, then began the process of the revitalization of higher education. Let me also take you through a little bit of history.
Okay, briefly.
Yes, briefly.
Sure.
You know, we have gone through some industrial revolutions.
Yes.
Yes, the first industrial revolution focused on water and steam for production. Then the second revolution used electricity for mass production.
Okay.
The third revolution used ICT to automate production.
Sure.
Currently, we are in a knowledge economy, and this is the fourth revolution. And here, we are now building on the third revolution.
Okay.
And knowledge.
Okay, Mr. Bekoe, just to cut you short a bit, if I'm completely new to the term university-industry linkages, how would you explain so that I understand? What does it mean?
Yes, I was building a case.
Okay.
Yes. Knowledge now becomes the primary asset that shoots a country into global competitiveness. But mind you, countries themselves don't compete.
Okay.
It is the structures within the countries, particularly the productive sector, that competes. And for industry, let me use industry in a generic term to connote all the productive sectors. And so for industry to compete, they need universities, which are the knowledge generators, which also generate the research for them.
Okay.
Hence, the emphasis on university-industry linkages.
Sure.
When we have structures that promote universities and industries, you have your country being in the limelight and competing with other countries.
Right.
So that is why the term university industry, why the focus on that.
Okay. But earlier when you were talking, you said you use industry generically to refer to, maybe know the constituent parts of industry. If we talk about industry, which players are we talking about?
Basically, to the ordinary man in the street, when you say industry, the focus is on high-tech industry, the mining companies and the telcos. But then, in our African setting, we know that 70% of activities do happen through small and medium-scale enterprises. And so when we talk about university-industry linkages, we are not cutting out these small and medium-scale enterprises. So industry, in our term, is any productive sector of the economy. It could be the teaching profession, it could be tourism, it could be nursing, it could be manufacturing, it could be anything. And as far as it generates a value. Yes, so that is what we're talking about.
If I should ask, what in your opinion has been the contribution of university-industry linkage to economies?
Well, we have a problem. And the problem is that Africa does not collect data. There are several initiatives that are ongoing between universities and industries. But the lack of data to document this has been a bane. That is why we are still not being ranked in the global knowledge setting. But individually, institutions have their own kinds of linkages with industry. You want me to go further?
Yes, mainly to tease out the importance of these strategic partnerships to, let's say, the economy of Ghana, to the economy of Sierra Leone, to the economy. If universities partner with industries, what are the major benefits that we stand to gain? Yes.
Right. What do universities need from industry? That's what you want to know. What do industry need from universities? All right. Industries need basically two things from universities. One, they need a manpower. Two, they need a research and innovation output. Universities need funding from industry to be able to carry out the research. They need funding for infrastructural development. They need to take their staff out there to industry for experiential learning, so that can also influence the curriculum that have been taught in the universities. Likewise, universities also need to take their products to industry so that they can also learn. And this is what we call internship. So that at the end of the day, the products from the universities don't become half-baked graduates, but they are graduates who are fit for the world of work.
Which leads me to my next question about the general conception of universities churning out graduates who are half-baked, just like you said. I was wondering, how does university-industry linkages come in to assuage this current situation?
I will answer by saying that we have actually left out some strategic stakeholders. The first one is the state, government.
Which is government.
Yes, or policy makers. And then there are other stakeholders like donors, the civil society organizations. But let's focus on the tripartite, the state, universities, and the productive sector. No, the state is responsible for creating the enabling environment for these two sectors, that the university and the industry, to operate. And by that, what do I mean? I mean that the state should make regulations and policies. For instance, taxing policies. Say if University A manages to partner with Industry B, we are going to create a tax incentive, a 5-year tax waiver on whatever innovation will come out of this collaboration.
Are these not in place already? In some countries, maybe?
Well, it depends on the country context. But let me tell you, many countries don't have entrepreneurial policies.
Okay.
They have small and medium-scale enterprises policies.
What's the difference?
The SMEs are a subset of entrepreneurialism, because for an entrepreneurial policy, you need all sectors of the economy.
Okay.
You need the banking sector.
Sure.
You need the agricultural sector. And you even need multi-ministries to come together, to come out with a holistic and comprehensive policy that cuts across.
Okay.
But if you talk about industry and the focus is only on production, you always see the policies focusing only on the manufacturing sector.
Okay.
Which shouldn't be the case.
It should be bigger than that.
It should be bigger than that.
Okay. Okay, so viewers, if you just joined us, this is AAU Talks on the AAU television station. We promise you nothing but the best, and we are glad you've stayed tuned up to now. So just before this short break I'm taking, I've been talking to our special guest in the studio. He's in the person of Mr. Ransford Bekoe, and we've been discussing university-industry linkages. He's really telling us a lot of things that probably we weren't aware of. So I would urge you to stay tuned as there's more coming your way. So I'm also inviting you to send your comments via Facebook page, is the Association of African Universities, and also via Twitter account is AAU_67, and I'll be reading them shortly if you do send them in. So Mr. Bekoe, we are back, and like I said, we are glad to have you here. Just to move the discussion forward, you know, universities, and as a matter of fact, the higher education institutions in general, they are seen as ivory towers who are in their own world and really not in touch with the real world outside them. I want to find out, are universities on the continent, are they really engaging in this form of university-industry linkages? Are they really forming strategic partnerships? Are they really doing anything at all? We want to know the practical situation on the ground as it stands.
Thank you. I think the answer is yes and no.
Oh.
It is yes because some are doing that.
Okay.
If you go to Burkina Faso,
sure,
there is an institution called 2IE.
Okay.
This is in West Africa. You go to Eastern Africa, go to Jomo Kenyatta University of Agric and Technology.
Okay.
If you go to Southern Africa, go to Stellenbosch University. These are just examples of universities that have strong linkages with the productive sector.
What exactly are they doing?
One, they have managed to network with the productive sector, or let me use industry.
Okay.
So that industry or industry players now sit on the board of these institutions. Two, they also see or welcome these industry players as adjunct professors or faculty who come over and then disseminate the information that is needed to influence curricula. And through such linkages, they have built laboratories and other infrastructure. And these universities have also created what I call enterprises, which serve as a one-stop center where students who have innovations bring them on board. Industry comes over to see what students and even faculty have done. And then a platform is created through job fairs and other forms of interaction to catapult these universities into the limelight.
That's exciting to note.
Yes.
I think it would be good if AAU, as being the higher education body, can sort of organize such that institutions which are not doing this maybe pay a visit to these ones which are really excelling in university-industry linkages, so that they can see what is happening on the ground and probably implement it back in their universities as well. Don't you think that would be a good idea?
I think it is, but let me also correct something. AAU does that.
Okay.
AAU creates the platform through its training programs. And AAU puts some university faculty on what we call senior staff attachment.
What is that?
That, say, a 2-member team from a university will be placed in another university that has improved on its innovation, so that they go there to have experiential learning and come back to their institution to, map out strategies where they can also, improve upon their performances. And by doing that, we are also creating this South-South and inter-university collaboration on the continent.
But beyond this, what else could AAU probably do to push that agenda forward?
AAU should work. We cannot work in isolation. So we need to work with all our strategic stakeholders, particularly the African Union.
And the universities themselves, I guess.
Yes, but, policies, like I said, are always emanating from states or governments. Now, if you go way back in 1990, there was a Lagos Plan of Action in Lagos that was ratified by heads of state that they are going to commit 1% of their gross domestic product into research and development.
Did that happen?
Are you asking me?
I am.
Let's ask our government. Look at a country like Malaysia or South Korea.
Or Singapore, maybe.
Singapore. No, Singapore has no natural resource. So Singapore developed through its focus on biotechnology. It invested in its human resource and changed the curriculum from the second cycle to the tertiary cycle institutions to focus on that. And now the GDP of Singapore is higher than most African countries. When in their, during their, independence, they had a very low GDP, but because of the focus. South Korea invests about 3.4% of its GDP in its human resources. So the Samsungs and whatever that are springing up. It's a testimony that if you invest in human resources, in the appropriate science and technology fields, you're able to not leapfrog development, but even shoot ahead. So our governments are not helping our universities to be competitive. They are not creating the environment for them to at least tap into a pool of funds that industry will take advantage of such overtures and partner with universities. So to leave universities on their own is going to be Herculean because all universities are virtually chasing donors. But why are governments not investing money's funds they've raised into a pool so that we use those funds to solve locally relevant challenges? And then the universities will become locally relevant, internationally competitive.
So this is the right platform, Mr. Bekoe. We are giving you, kindly talk to the government on what they should be doing. Because clearly I can tell from the passion with which you are speaking that a lot needs to be done and is not being done. And this is why we established the AAU channel to provide the platform to speak with the relevant stakeholders. So for the next 1 minute or 1 second, I'm giving you the floor. Please speak to them directly.
To my African government, the time to walk the talk is now. We actually missed it because it is yesteryear, but it's better late than never. No more talk shops. Let's incentivize our universities. Let them lead the development agenda of the continent.
Let them lead the development agenda of the continent, says Mr. Bekoe. So on this note, I think we've had a very engaging discussion. I don't even want to go on again because it's very rich at this point, and I think we would end here and look forward to another exciting edition of the AAU Talks. We've been very privileged and glad to have you here, and we hope next time when we invite you, you readily honor our call.
I will gladly do so.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Bekoe. And thank you, viewers, for staying tuned. This is the AAU TV, and we promise nothing but the best. Please watch the space and look out for more. I'm once again Felicia Kuagbedzi, and thanks for staying. Bye.